morning. How do you eat sustainable, grass-fed, pastured, free-range, all of that kind of meat on a tight budget? We're going to be talking about that this morning for about 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm excited to talk about that because this is the most difficult food group for my family. And I think that's the same for a lot of other folks who eat meat. I've been asking you during these live mornings that which food group is the most difficult for you, and a lot of you have said that the meat category is really hard. So, which makes sense because the conventional meat, the price between the conventional meat and like the organic and local and grass-fed and whatever is huge. There's such a big difference in the price, and I constantly feel like I'm choosing between needing to take care of our family's health by choosing the healthier version and taking care of our budget and not going broke. And so it's really difficult. But over the years, we've got a lot of tips that we have tried and that we found successful, and a lot of stuff that we haven't found was really successful. And so I'm really excited to share them with you so that if you are trying to eat grass-fed, sustainable meat on a budget, you can skip all the trial and error and just try these things. The idea of this like real food, healthy food on a tight budget live series is that kind of in the same way that we enjoy seeing other people's grocery hauls, and we like kind of looking into their grocery carts and seeing what works for them and why they're buying what they're buying. I want to share that with you. And so you can kind of look into our kitchen and see what we're buying. But instead of just showing it to you and just throwing it out there with no other explanation, I want to tell you exactly what we buy, why we buy it, and how we've gotten the best price. So if you have any questions throughout the process, feel free to ask them and I will try to address them as I can. But first I have a question for you, okay? I want to know what kind of meat you eat, because like whether you are vegetarian and you just skip this entirely, or whether you mostly have to lean toward conventional for budget reasons, or you just don't care and that's fine too, or whether grass-fed, sustainable, all those trendy words are really important to you. Because wherever you are is exactly where you should be, and there's no judgment, and I just want to know where you sit and what, like, are you happy with that, or do you want to change that up, and all that. So the first question I want to address is why we made sustainable meat a priority. And if you already care about sustainable meat, then you probably have a similar story in that there are a couple of revealing documentaries, there are a couple of really important books that made me rethink some things, but the one thing that makes me kind of weird is that I also grew up on a farm. And so while the documentaries helped kind of hone in that this was a priority for me in my adulthood, I also grew up, we raised chickens, we raised goats, we raised sheep, that kind of thing. And so it was already in my heart that it was important seeing animals well cared for. It was important. There was a huge quality difference in the food that we got from the grocery store and the food that we got from our backyard. And I grew up already knowing that and having that baked into me. And so when I grew up and we were on a tight budget and we were just trying to eat whatever we could eat to keep body and soul together, then I already cared deeply about eating healthy, and I already wanted to make sure that I was doing my part in helping take care of the earth, but also taking care of our bodies, because I knew that it felt different. I knew what the difference was already. So that's why we did that. And then this is how we've done that over the years. There's been a lot of different methods that we've used, but my favorite and probably the least popular method for saving money when you're trying to eat good meat and stick to a tight budget is to eat a lot of plant-based food. And I say it's least popular because honestly, it seems like in most relationships, there's one person who's okay with plant-based and one person who's like, I need my meat. And it's not necessarily, like one gender or the other or anything like that. It's just because opposites tend to attract. And so we end up with two complements in a relationship and they both have strong opinions. And so I think it's important to be flexible in this area, and I think it's important to be united to a certain degree. Usually, again, one of you cares more deeply about healthy eating than the other person, and quite often they're just dragging that person around. But I think it's okay to not baby the other person, and I think it's okay to really do all that you can to make sure that they know why you're doing it this way, and that it's not just because you hate them and you want their life miserable and you want them to, not enjoy the food. They need to know that they that you care about them, and why this is important to you, and that way you can be a little more united. So, sorry, morning voice, okay? So, plant-based meals are a huge part of our diet. Sorry, guys. Plant-based meals are a huge part of our diet, and you'll find a lot of recipes for that on my site. But I also try to make them really flexible because there are so many opinions about, like some people just need to have meat with their meal. And so a lot of the recipes on my site are adaptable, so that those of you in the family who can do just the plant-based meal can eat that, and then whoever needs to eat meat, they can have a little bit of meat with their meal. It's very easy to add a little bit of that. And I try to give instructions on how to do that for each recipe. So that's all the plant-based things that we do. And then the other thing to think about is that meat is a condiment and less of a huge portion of the meal. There's lots of research out there that that's a healthier way to approach your food. And the reality is even low-carb diets and keto and stuff like that and paleo, they say that you shouldn't be eating more meat. You're substituting all the carbs and all of the other foods with more fruits and vegetables and with more healthy fats, and your meat should probably stay the same. So a lot of research supports eating less meat in your diet in general, and I think it's important to remember that vegetables and fruit and healthy fats are really delicious, and you can add them and you can get full. You don't have to just eat all of the meat. So we also try to make our chicken and our beef ahead of time, and that way it's easy to add to recipes, and you can really control how much goes into each recipe. So I have a couple of methods on my site. It's called the only chicken you need to make and the only beef that you need to make. And it's basically just a really flavorful, delicious base of chicken and beef, and then you can keep it in your kitchen. You can freeze it if you want to. Keep it in your fridge, and then you just add it to whatever meal. So we'll have let's see, if we have tacos or something, then I don't usually make a whole pound of ground beef for the tacos the night that I make tacos. I already made ground beef ahead of time, and we'll add some meat to the meal, but the focus is on the other things in the meal. And so that way I don't feel like I have, like I made a whole pound or a whole 2 pounds of taco seasoned beef. Like we don't do that. We try to have our basic beef, and then we add it to the meal, and then we can use another portion of the beef for another meal and just make that stretch over several meals. And then I also use this same concept in Dinner for $1, which is my cookbook on my site, because I know how important this has been in helping us save money and helping us eat healthy. And so I highly encourage you to check out the recipes on my site if you are unsure of this concept or you aren't exactly sure how it works. And like I said, a bunch of, pretty much all of the recipes in Dinner for $1 follow this concept, and it breaks it down in there so that it's easy to apply. All right, this is the part where I want to tell you exactly what meat we eat and how we have saved money. So the beef, okay, we'll start with beef. The way that we save money on sustainable beef, besides just use less of it, is this is how we purchase it to save money. We find a local farmer and we start making friends with them and being consistent, reliable customers. And then we eventually either ask for a deal or explore their deal and bulk options, because I found that when you make friends with your farmer and they know that they can rely on you as a consistent customer, then they are happy to negotiate deals with you because they know that they can rely on you and you're not just a once and done kind of person. So we have our farmer, and we, after buying from them for a while and talking with them, then I learned that they have a restaurant deal, which basically they sell to a lot of restaurants who want, grass-fed beef or whatever. And I figured out that if I bought 50 pounds of ground beef from them, then I could get it for $5 a pound, and this was grass-fed beef. And so that was the best price that I could find for grass-fed beef, even compared to a grocery store or something. Unless a grocery store had a really good sale, this is the best price I can find in my area for grass-fed beef. And so we took it. And a couple of tips here. We don't have an extra freezer. So when I talk about buying in bulk, I've had to be very creative in the past buying in bulk, because we don't have a space for an extra freezer in our house. And so we usually buy the 50 pounds, and then we'll find a couple of friends who are willing to go in on it with us. And so rather than needing to find a way to put 50 pounds of beef into our tiny freezer, we only have to deal with 15 pounds or 25 pounds. It just depends on how many friends we found to split it with. And that way we're getting the price, but we don't have the headache. And then the other thing that we focus on is we pretty much use ground beef. And we don't go for steaks, or we don't go for beef chuck roast and all that. And that's just because that works for us. We all in our family like ground beef. I've found that it's really easy to control how much we're putting in each meal when it's ground beef rather than a chuck roast or a steak or something like that. And that's just the cheapest that we've been able to find because of that particular restaurant deal that we have with that farmer. And that's something that we're all okay with. We don't feel like we're missing out. We do like steak, we do like roasts, and we have them occasionally, but for our week-to-week beef intake, we have just the ground beef, and that's good enough for us. And then with chickens, chickens have been harder for me to find from a local farmer, but I do have these concepts that you can apply across the board. And that is, if you're buying from a local farmer, to talk about buying bulk. And again, that's something that you can split between friends so that you're not getting 20, 50 chickens. That's something that you can, you want to make friends with your farmer, because that way they're more interested in maybe not just giving you the bulk package that they offer to everybody, but finding a customizable option for you. And then we also usually buy whole chickens. And that's just because the bone broth is great for you. You can make bone broth out of the bones and skin afterwards, and then that way I can add that to a lot of our plant-based meals and just kind of bulk up some of the nutrients in it, and that it adds a little bit of meat-ishness to the meal. And then we also try to eat thighs and not chicken breasts. So the dark meat, for some reason, the dark meat is more flavorful, it's more nutritious, it's delicious, it's very easy to work with, but for some reason in America we love the chicken breast. And so that is the most expensive cut, especially if you are looking at organic and stuff like that. Very, very expensive. And so we try to focus more on the dark meat. Now that's not always the case because I live in a family that loves the white meat. And so, I will make I'll find ways to work around that. So that they're not always eating the meat that they prefer less. But we're also making sure that we're guarding our budget and guarding our health because, like I said, the dark meat and the whole chickens and everything, in the end, that's better for you to be eating the whole chicken and to be eating, the bone broth part of it and a variety of stuff rather than just straight chicken breast all the time. So the next thing is eggs. Eggs, I kind of have two extreme views, and that is I either buy the cheap eggs from like Aldi for 69 cents a dozen, or I buy really good eggs from a farmer who, has chickens in her backyard and gives them pedicures. And that's because I've researched the different the different care options for like the better eggs at the grocery store, and there's really not a huge difference as far as nutrition. Chicken, like, everyone's got an opinion, but I've decided for my family I'm either buying the really cheap eggs, and it's like, I know these aren't the best for me, but these are the cheapest options, so we're just going to do this. Or I'm going to try to get the really good eggs. And we've also tried to do like trades with farmers. And when I say farmer, I usually mean a friend who has chickens in their backyard. And so we'll try to work out a trade where I'm like trading homemade bread or something that I'm already making at home, or maybe just something. Or I'm buying like a lot of eggs at one time because the eggs will keep really well in the fridge. Or if they aren't refrigerated, if they've never been refrigerated, they will keep for a long time just at room temperature actually. And that's something that can be scary at first because of the way that we've been trained by grocery stores, but it's worth exploring and looking into. So I'll buy a lot of eggs from them, so that way I'm buying them in bulk and I can kind of get a discount that way. So lots of options there. Right now, full disclosure, we are buying Aldi eggs because that's what we can afford and that's what works for us right now. So fish is another issue that I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about fish, and that's just because I don't live on the coast. So our fish options are not real great. I try to go to Aldi because that's the best price, and they actually have sustainability and line caught policies for their fish. So now I haven't looked into them heavily, so it could just all be smoke and pomp and no substance. But they do have a policy and a brand or whatever that talks about making sure that the fish is sustainable and that it's helping the environment and not destroying it and that kind of thing. So I buy salmon from Aldi, and I buy their canned tuna and their canned salmon, and we also eat that. So let's see, I'm just checking my notes. Those are the meats that we eat most of the time, and then we have some compromise meats, which means we don't eat very often, but they are still a part of our lives. And that is, first, breakfast sausage. Let me talk about that, because sausage is delicious, and a lot of times when you are trying to save money and eat sustainable meat, then the sausage at the grocery store, it does not fall into that category. And pre-seasoned sausage from the farmers can be really expensive. So I have a recipe on my site where it's called 4-ingredient sausage, where I've tried lots of different breakfast sausage recipes, but I finally found a combination of seasonings that tastes great and that we really enjoy eating as breakfast sausage. And it's only 4 ingredients, and none of them are weird. So you probably already have them in your cupboard, and you just add some ground beef to it, and you're done, and it's delicious. We love it. So I won't say that it's as good as Jimmy Dean's or whatever it is at the grocery store, but it is still delicious, and it falls under our priorities in life. So I'm good with that. So our compromise meats are like turkey bacon that is nitrate free. We have like beef hot dogs that are kosher or nitrate free, and lunch meat that's nitrate free. And those are all things that you can probably find one or the other in our kitchen right now, but they're not ones that we eat all the time, just because when you buy the good quality version of that meat, it's really expensive. And it's hard to prioritize that, especially like lunch meat will be it's like $9 a pound if you're buying the nitrate free stuff. And that just adds up a lot, and I can get ground beef for $5 a pound that's grass fed and delicious. And so it's just one of those things that, sometimes we eat it and sometimes we don't. And I've found the best prices at Aldi for the lunch meat, and I found the best prices for the turkey bacon at Costco and at Aldi. And sometimes like Kroger or something will have a really good sale on like Applegate turkey bacon, and then we'll stock up on that and try to make that last for a long time. And then what was the other thing? Hot dogs. So the best prices that I've found for like beef nitrate free hot dogs is at Costco. They have like the Hebrew National hot dogs. They're delicious, and that's the best price that I found for that. Or Kroger will have like a sale for like a pack of hot dogs for $1.99, and they're nitrate free and all of that. So that's when we'll stock up on that. Some people's Aldis also have nitrate free hot dogs, and that's awesome. So definitely check out your Aldi if you have one near you. Ours does not offer that, so I haven't been able to taste them, and to try them out and see if we actually like them or read the ingredients. I just know that for some people that's what they have in their area, and they say that they're awesome. So check it out if you have an Aldi. Now, the meat that we specifically avoid is anything that doesn't fall into these categories. So if I haven't mentioned it today, then we probably don't eat it. And that includes like shellfish and pork, and a lot of that just has to do with the way that we grew up and what we grew up eating and getting used to and cooking. And so that's more a taste thing. And again, we don't eat it we're not on the coast, so we don't have really good sources for like shrimp and stuff like that unless it's really expensive. And so that's just what works for us. Also, anything that is heavily processed, we try to avoid stuff that has nitrates in it. And that's not because we're trying to eat perfect. It's not because we are fearmongers and are stressed out about eating or anything like that. It's just if we set up these little guidelines in our lives, then it helps us find an alternative that's healthier. So kind of like our rule with sweets and desserts, we have a rule in our house that if we don't make it, then we don't buy it. So we don't buy like pre-made pies or packaged brownies and stuff like that. Not because we think they're terrible, although we all know that they're not, pies and brownies, it's not that good for you, right? But it just creates kind of some boundaries that help us decide whether we really want those brownies, because if we really want those brownies, then we're willing to make it. But if we just want to throw some sugar in our face, then it's just, we're just not going to do that because it's not worth it. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. But we apply the same concept to every food group because it just helps us guard our health and guard our budget at the same time. And none of these rules are 100% of the time. So these are the general guidelines by which we fill our kitchen, but that doesn't mean if you came over a couple of days from now, I might have some smoked kielbasa in my fridge. And it just depends on the day. So I think it's really important to hear what works for other people and come up with your own guidelines and your own goals, but also just remember that it's not going to be perfect. You can't eat perfect all the time because the reality is the research is changing and the information that comes out is changing all of the time. And so what was perfect a couple years ago will not be perfect in a couple years from now. So just do the best that you can, and I hope that these tips helped you and that you can take them and apply them to your lives. There is a post on my site with these tips on it, so if you missed them or I was talking too fast or something like that, I'm going to update that post and share it on Instagram, and I'm going to share it in my email list. So if you want this list, you can sign up for my email list, which if you just go to my site, cheapskatecook.com, start here in the sidebar, just plug that in and plug in your email at the link there, and I will probably send the updated list out probably next week. Thank you. I'm glad you like my common sense approach. Someone told me that I should be the lazy healthy cook, not just the cheapskate cook, and it's true. It's got to be simple, or I'm not going to do it. So I'll send out the list probably next week, and I will try to update it with a video, either the recording of this video or a nicer video that I'm going to put on YouTube that has a lot less ums than me looking at my notes and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope this helped you. I hope that we can talk again soon. I'm going to be live here again on Thursday, and we're going to talk about our next food group, which is fruits and vegetables. And I'm excited about that one because I've got some really good tips for you. So have a great day. Thanks.